feel the syringe stuck with antifreeze, and you inject yourself, and you're dead in better than 10 minutes.
The notorious pig farm serial killer Robert Pickton, who fed his victims to pigs, can now apply for day parole. The family of these victims are outraged and disgusted at the man who confessed to 49 murders is eligible for parole, although it is unlikely the parole board will ever free him based on the horrific circumstances. Thanks for joining my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm a crime channel. If that interests you, don't forget to subscribe. I appreciate all the support this small channel can get. On February 6, 2002, police executed a search at Robert Pickton's property for reports of illegal firearms. Both Robert and his brother were arrested, and police were able to obtain a second warrant based on what they had seen at the farm. What they saw was so shocking and vile. There they found body parts and bones across the property, many of which were in the pigsties and belonged to indigenous women. Within hours of officers arriving at the scene, the property became the site of the largest crime scene search in the country's history. In fact, the police investigation and the search on the farm after their arrest cost $70 million. But let's go back to the beginning. I must warn you, the details of this case are gruesome. Robert Pickton was born October 24, 1949 to Leonard and Louise Pickton. They were Canadian pig farmers living in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia. Robert Pickton had a younger brother, David, and an older sister, Linda. Linda was sent to Vancouver to live off the farm, whereas Robert and David stayed and lived a troubled childhood. Louise made the boys work long hours on the farm, even on school days. And due to these long hours, the boys had a foul smell of manure, dead animals, and dirt. As you can imagine, they were very unpopular in school. Not to mention, Robert was slow in school and eventually dropped out early on. But perhaps the most revealing story of his childhood is one that does not involve him at all. Rather, it involves his brother Dave and their mother, Louise. On October 16, 1967, David Pickton drove his father's red truck shortly after getting his license. The details are murky, but something happened that caused the truck to slam into a 14-year-old boy who had been walking along the side of the road. His name was Tim Barrett. In a panic, Dave sped home to tell his mother what had happened. Louise panicked and returned with her son to where the boy was laying injured, but still alive. She bent over to inspect him, then she pushed him into a deep slough running along the side of the road. The next day, Tim Barrett was found dead. An autopsy revealed that the 8th grader had drowned, and while his injuries from the collision were severe, it would not have killed him. Louise Pickton was highly influential, if not the most influential, in Robert's life. Perhaps it's not surprising that he would go on to kill. Robert Pickton's murderous streak began in the early 1990s. These are the real images of his property. Bill Hiscox, a worker on the farm, would later say the property was creepy, to say the least. In 1996, the Picktons began a non-profit charity called the Piggy Palace Good Times Society to organize, coordinate, manage, and operate special events. However, these charity events were in fact raves the brothers held in their slaughterhouse, which they'd converted into a warehouse-style space. The following year, March 1997, Robert was charged with the attempted murder of one of the sex workers, Wendy Lynn Ice-Teeter. During an altercation at the farm, Robert handcuffed Wendy's hands and stabbed her repeatedly with a knife. Luckily, Wendy managed to escape and report him, and Robert was arrested for attempted murder. Sadly, the charge was later dismissed, but it opened farm worker Bill Hiscox's eyes to a larger problem occurring on the farm. In the next 3 years after Robert Pickton's run-in with the law, Hiscox noticed that women who visited the farm tended to go missing. Eventually, he reported this to the police, but it wasn't until 2002 that Canadian authorities finally searched the farm. During the investigation, police uncovered just how Robert had gruesomely murdered women. Police reports and taped confessions from Pickton concluded that women had been killed in multiple ways. Some of these women had been handcuffed and stabbed. Others had been injected with antifreeze. After they were dead, Robert would either take their bodies to a meat rendering plant nearby or grind them up and feed them to the pigs that lived on his farm. To this day, it is unclear how many women fell victim to Pickton's gruesome killing spree, but prosecutors say that Pickton told an undercover officer in his jail cell that he had killed 49, and was disappointed that he couldn't make it an even 50. Relatives of the victims, many of whom were indigenous, say authorities long denied there was a pattern to the disappearances or that there were ever links. Pickton was originally charged with 26 murders, and despite evidence that he had killed more, Robert Pickton was only convicted of 6 counts of second-degree murder because those cases were the most concrete. A judge sentenced Robert Pickton to life in prison with no possibility of parole for 25 years, the maximum sentence for a second-degree murder charge in Canada. Any other charges against him were discontinued, as the courts decided that there were no way any of them could add to his sentence, as he was already serving the maximum. I can only imagine what the families of the victims are going through and how disturbing it must be to see that Robert Pickton has aged into his parole. I hope this monster stays behind bars, as he is a danger to society.
Really? Make things disappear.
I was going to do one more, maybe even 50. That's what I was stopping people for.
Yeah.
I want to do one more, make it be a big battle.
Make the big 5 That's 5-0. Half 100.
You feel the surge with antifreeze, and you inject yourself, and you're dead in better than 10 minutes. Freeze as an individual, everything else. Another phrase is, also is, stuff on me.
No.
That's why it's part of it.
Thank you for dropping by. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, take care and stay safe.